Welcome to the GRP briefing webinar for the Investigator Grant Scheme. This webinar takes you through the peer review steps for Investigator grants, one of the schemes in NHMRC's new grant program. I'd like to thank you for the vital contribution you'll be making as an independent expert peer reviewer. Effective peer review relies on the participation of dedicated reviewers to assess applications carefully and fairly. We've achieved some significant streamlining of peer review processes for the new grant program, but that said, there's no doubt that it will be a lot of work that will take you away from your own research and other professional and personal activities. The team at NHMRC, as well as thousands of grant applicants around the country, rely on and appreciate your effort and dedication. The purpose of the Investigator Grant Scheme is to support the research programs of outstanding investigators at all career stages, providing a single source of funding for both salary and research support. These grants will provide the investigator with flexibility to pursue important new research directions as they arise and to form collaborations as needed. This means that investigators aren't restricted to the scope of a specific research project. The scheme is now our largest funding program, accounting for approximately 40% of our total expenditure on research. As this is the first investigator grant round, and therefore the first to be peer reviewed, it's crucial that you familiarise yourself with the peer review guidelines for the scheme. It's important to pay particular attention to the assessment criteria and category descriptors. These criteria and descriptors have been designed specifically to support the objectives of the Investigator Grant Scheme. Your primary role as a member of an Investigator Grant Review Panel is to independently assess and score each application assigned to you against the assessment criteria using the category descriptors as a guide. Each application is assessed against two criteria: track record, weighted 70%, and knowledge gain, weighted 30%. Track record, in turn, is split into the assessment of publications, 35%, research impact, 20%, and leadership, 15%. Now, a key change in the assessment of track record is the shift in focus away from inputs to a greater emphasis on research outputs and impact. This approach is commensurate with practice internationally and receives strong support from Australia's health and medical research sector during NHMRC's consultations. NHMRC defines the impact of research as the verifiable outcomes of research on knowledge, health, the economy, and/or society. Impact is the effect of the research after it's been adapted for use, or used to inform further research. Applicants are asked to indicate in their application which of the research impact types, knowledge, health, economic and social, they would like considered in their assessment of their application. If their research program has demonstrated multiple impacts, the overall research impact score is determined holistically and on balance across the four types. That is to say, it's not additive. This means that an applicant with one type of impact can score as well as or better than an applicant with multiple types of impact. It's important to keep this in mind when assessing an applicant's research impact. When you consider the corroborating evidence supplied by applicants, it's the quality of the evidence provided, not the quantity, that matters. Applicants only need to provide evidence sufficient and strong enough to verify their claims. They don't have to provide all evidence that may be on public record. As an expert in your field, you need to decide whether the impact claims have been sufficiently corroborated. When assessing knowledge gain, you'll be assessing the applicant's research vision for the next 5 years, focusing on the quality of the proposed research and the significance of the knowledge gained. The significance is not a measure of the prevalence or incidence of the health issue, for example, the number of cases. It's the significance of the proposed research for addressing the issue. The applicant's vision should incorporate theoretical concepts, hypothesis, research design, robustness, and the extent to which the research findings will contribute to the research area and health outcomes. As always, it's essential you consider any career disruptions and/or relative to opportunity considerations in your assessment. Be sure also to benchmark your scores appropriately, taking into consideration the category descriptions and the statement of expectations for the level of grant applied for. The integrity of the peer review process is important to all of us. First, it's vital that peer reviewers declare any personal or professional relationships or institutional affiliations that could unduly influence the review of an application. Second, grant applications, your reviews and your panel discussions must be kept confidential at all times and in perpetuity. And third, a high-quality review process depends on collegial and professional behaviour. Should any contentious issues arise during the peer review process that require assistance to resolve, chairs and peer reviewers can obtain information and guidance from senior NHMRC officers. Your Secretariat will be your primary point of contact for questions about the peer review process, so please don't hesitate to contact them should you need any assistance. NHMRC is constantly reviewing the performance of its funding schemes, and this is particularly important with the rollout of the new grant program. We value your feedback on the peer review process as we continue to improve NHMRC peer review. Once again, I'd like to thank you for undertaking peer review for this Investigator grant round. Your help is critical to the success of this important new scheme.
Welcome to the NHMRC Investigator Grants 2019 Grant Review Panel webinar. This webinar will take you through the steps of the Investigator Grant peer review process as outlined in the Investigator Grants 2019 Guide to Peer Review. Based on conflict of interest and suitability declarations, applications have now been assigned to 5-member panels, each responsible for reviewing up to 35 applications. There will not be nominated spokespeople for applications. Rather, each panel member will assess and provide scores for each application assigned to their panel against the 2 criteria: track record, weighted 70%, and knowledge gain, weighted 30%. The track record criterion consists of separate assessment of publications, weighted 35%, research impact, weighted 20%, and leadership, weighted 15%. Assessment of publications will consider the applicant's publications from the past 10 years, taking into account career disruptions, as well as the applicant's selection of their 5 best publications from those 10 years. Applicants must justify these selections, describing the quality of each publication and its contribution to science. Research impact is assessed on the significance and reach of the claimed impact, the contribution of the research program to the research impact, and the contribution of the applicant to the research program. When assessing applications against this criterion, refer to the key definitions of research impact provided in the Investigator Grant 2019 Guide to Peer Review. Remember, impact is the verifiable outcomes from research, not the prospective or anticipated effects of the research. Different 7-point scales are used for emerging leadership and leadership applicants. This is to recognise that early and mid-career researchers will have had less time to accumulate research impact. Leadership is assessed on the applicant's outputs over the past 10 years, taking into account career disruptions across each of the 4 leadership elements: research mentoring, research policy and professional leadership, institutional leadership, research programs and team leadership. When assessing track record, it is essential that the leadership level applied for by the applicant is taken into account when considering the application against the category descriptors. When evaluating relative to opportunity considerations, the year in which the applicant's PhD or equivalent was obtained should also be taken into account. It is important that you consider past research achievements relative to opportunity, not prospective achievements. This is of particular importance when assessing the research impact criterion. Knowledge gain is assessed on the applicant's research vision for the next 5 years, focusing on the quality of the proposed research and the significance of the knowledge gained. It is important that you submit your scores to NHMRC on time to avoid delaying the process. While there is no requirement to submit a written assessment, we recommend that you prepare notes for use at the panel assessment confirmation meeting, should a meeting be required. To ensure scoring is independent, it is important that you do not discuss applications with one another before the panel assessment confirmation meeting. Refer to the Investigator Grants 2019 Guide to Peer Review, In particular, the assessment criteria and category descriptors for more information on the assessment and scoring of applications. Once applications have been independently assessed and scored, provisional ranked lists adjusted for conflicts of interest will be provided to the panel. Panel members will review the consolidated scores and have the opportunity to nominate applications for discussion at the panel assessment confirmation meeting. Nominating members must outline what aspect of the application they wish to discuss with the panel. This justification must be in reference to the assessment criteria. There is no expectation for members to nominate applications for discussion at the panel assessment confirmation meeting. The meetings are an opportunity for reviewers to raise specific questions or issues they have with the assessment of an application, and not an opportunity to rescue applications. The focus of each video conference will not be the ranking of individual applications, but rather the scores of nominated applications in relation to the assessment criteria. The meetings are not intended to encourage individual peer reviewers to regress their score to the panel mean. Instead, they are an opportunity to discuss divergent opinions, aspects of the application that the nominator felt were unclear, or any other issue raised by the panel. If no applications are nominated for discussion by members on a panel, then no meeting will be held. Should a panel assessment confirmation meeting be required, NHMRC will provide members with a list of applications to be discussed, as well as an outline of what the nominating member would like to discuss in advance of the meeting. Only applications nominated for discussion will be discussed. Required meetings will take place via video conference or teleconference. The Investigator Grants 2019 Guide to Peer Review provides indicative dates for these meetings. It is anticipated that panel assessment confirmation meetings will run no longer than half a day. Your Secretariat will manage the participation of conflicted members during the meeting and manage the e-scoring process through NHMRC's grant management system. During the meeting, members will be provided the option to rescore applications nominated for discussion. If members wish to rescore an application following panel discussion, this will happen electronically via NHMRC's grant management system. Each panel assessment confirmation meeting will be led by a neutral and independent chair on behalf of NHMRC. Chairs are experienced researchers or NHMRC officers with extensive peer review experience. The chair's role is to ensure NHMRC's review process is followed, that all relevant issues are taken into account by the panel, and that fair and equitable consideration is given to each application being discussed. Chairs do not score, debate the merits of applications, or influence the panel's decision in any way. During panel assessment confirmation meetings, an independent observer, a highly respected volunteer representing the broader community, may be present to observe whether NHMRC policy and procedures are being adhered to. Observers are briefed on procedures before the meeting. Observers will not participate in the discussion of any application and will be identified and introduced by the chair before the commencement of the meeting. Each year, NHMRC awards the Frank Fenner Award to early career researchers within the biomedical or public health research area. Peer reviewers of applications within the basic science and public health areas are asked to consider nominating applications at the EL1 level that focus on international public health that best reflect the qualities exemplified in Professor Fenner's career. The highest ranked, funded and nominated EL1 application from across the basic science and public health research areas will be awarded the Frank Fenner Award. Once panel video conferences are completed, funding recommendations will be provided to NHMRC's Research Committee and Council before submission to the Minister for Health. Following approvals, applicants will be notified of their outcomes through NHMRC's grant management system. Thank you again for undertaking peer review for this Investigator Grants round. If you encounter any issues during the peer review process, please contact your panel secretariat, or alternatively, you may seek assistance from NHMRC's Research Help Centre.